Have you ever noticed how some people just seem to glide through life smoothly, while others are, well, they're just constantly hitting bumps and roadblocks and completely spinning out?
Yeah, it's like they're a magnet for crises.
Right. And I want you to really think about it. When we see someone whose life is just this constant series of disasters, we usually blame luck, right?
Oh, absolutely. Luck or the economy.
Yeah, a lack of money, or they don't have the right networking connections, or we just say, they were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But what if the secret to a smooth life actually has absolutely nothing to do with those external circumstances?
Which is a wild thought.
It is.
Yeah.
What if it is entirely 100% about the clarity of your thoughts?
And that is exactly why we are dedicating today's deep dive to unpacking this really brilliant framework.
Yeah, it challenges pretty much everything we're taught about success.
Exactly. So we're drawing from two essays written in February 2022 by an author named Shufeng. And the pieces center around these three core concepts: clear thinking, foresight, and short-sightedness.
And our mission today is to take this framework and help you audit your own decision-making process.
Right. We want to see if we can identify the internal friction that causes a bumpy, reactive life, and then figure out how to transition into one that is genuinely smooth.
But to start that process, I think we really need to understand the methodology behind these essays first, because the author bases these conclusions on what he calls reading the wordless book of heaven.
The wordless book of heaven, which sounds incredibly mystical.
It does. It sounds esoteric, but in the context of the text, it's actually a deeply practical, empirical concept.
How so?
Well, reading the wordless book just means observing nature.
Mm.
It means watching long-term societal changes and studying human behavior to find universal repeating patterns.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's the idea that human interaction, the cycles of nature, the rise and fall of societies, they're all texts. They can be read and decoded if you just cultivate enough patience to pay close attention.
I actually find that approach so refreshing. It's essentially treating everyday life as this massive data set.
Exactly.
And from reading this so-called wordless book, the author arrives at this very uncompromising core thesis.
Right, the ultimate predictor.
Yeah. According to the text, if you want to predict a person's future, you don't need to look at their bank account. You don't need to measure their political power or, their social media fame.
You don't even need to look at their astrological charts or
Yeah.
practice physiognomy.
Things like Bazi, right? The traditional Chinese practice of writing destinies based on birth data.
Yeah, none of those external predictors matter. You only need to measure one single metric.
Whether their thinking is clear or confused.
Precisely. The logic here is that if a person's thinking is clear, their life will inevitably be smooth. And if their thinking is confused, their life will inevitably be a mess.
We spend so much energy trying to smooth out the external factors of our lives, getting a better job, buying a nicer house, arguing with difficult people just to get some peace.
And the source material argues that is entirely futile.
Because if you don't adjust your internal clarity first, chaos will just follow you to that new job.
Or that new house. External smoothness is strictly a byproduct of internal clarity.
That makes intuitive sense. But I mean, clear thinking is one of those phrases that sounds great on a motivational poster, but it's incredibly vague in practice.
It can be, yeah.
So what does a confused mind actually look like in the real world? Because the author provides these fascinating micro-level examples that are almost, well, they're uncomfortably relatable.
Extremely relatable. The first one being the physical state of a person's environment.
Yes, the text states that if you walk into someone's yard or their bedroom and you see trash everywhere, unmade beds, clothes thrown randomly over chairs, and unwashed dishes piled up in the sink.
You don't even need to sit down and interview them.
Exactly. You know their future. The author argues that their mind is fundamentally chaotic, and because their mind is chaotic, their life trajectory is going to be a tangled mess.
It forces you to rethink what clutter actually is.
Right, because we often excuse a messy room as just, a lack of time, or maybe a sign of creative genius.
But the author isn't buying that at all. The environment is presented as a direct, unvarnished mirror of the internal mental state. If you can't organize the physical objects directly in front of you, things you have complete control over, how could you possibly possess the mental bandwidth to organize complex life decisions?
Or navigate relationships, or plan for the future.
Exactly. The cognitive load of that physical chaos bleeds into everything else.
It's the physical manifestation of an inability to prioritize. And the author brings up another everyday example of this: the rambling writer.
Oh, this is a great one.
Yeah. If someone writes an article that lacks focus, is overly wordy, illogical, and full of contradictory holes, their thinking is inherently unclear.
And the warning here is pretty stark.
Right. Following the lead of someone with that kind of chaotic mind, no matter how charismatic they are, will only bring you bad luck.
Because you're essentially asking someone who is profoundly lost in their own mind to hand you a map.
But we have to look beyond just the individual, right? Because the text scales this concept up to the macro level, and the implications get a lot heavier.
They do. The author argues that this exact same principle dictates the fate of entire nations. The future of a country depends entirely on the clarity of its citizens, and specifically its leaders.
Clear minds at the top lead to broad prosperity.
And confused minds guarantee systemic chaos.
Which brings us to a really compelling scenario from the essays regarding a corrupt official. I want to spend some time on this because it totally challenges our standard definition of success.
It flips it on its head.
The author describes a government official who rises in power, accumulates immense wealth, and enjoys a decade of continuous promotions. 10 solid years of climbing the ladder.
A very smooth run, seemingly.
Right. But then suddenly, the bottom falls out. They are investigated, jailed, their assets are confiscated, and they lose absolutely everything. Now, let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Wouldn't a lot of people look at that and say, well, they still had an incredibly smooth run for 10 years. They must have had some level of clear thinking to get that far right.
And that is exactly the trap the author wants us to avoid. The text answers that question with a definitive no.
No clear thinking at all.
None. In fact, that decade of corrupt success is framed as the ultimate symptom of confused thinking.
How so? Because money and promotions usually signal competence to the outside world.
Because the official fundamentally misunderstood the nature of reality. They mistakenly believed that holding a position of power meant they possessed a permanent shield, that they could act with impunity forever.
Ah, I see.
It's a profound lack of clarity. They confused a temporary circumstantial advantage with permanent invincibility. It's a total delusion.
So the smooth run wasn't a product of clear thinking.
No, it was an illusion built on a fragile foundation of deceit. When the crash inevitably happened, it wasn't a stroke of bad luck. It was the reality of their confused mind finally catching up with the physical world.
It's like building a mansion on a sinkhole and calling yourself a master architect just because the ground hasn't caved in yet.
Perfect analogy. The flaw was there from day one.
Okay, so if the unwashed dishes in the sink and the corrupt official taking bribes are both suffering from the exact same disease of a confused mind, how do we cure it? What is the actual mechanism for achieving mental clarity?
Well, the author is careful not to present this as some easy overnight fix. Achieving true clarity is deeply complex.
What does it involve?
It's tied to a multitude of factors: your deeply held beliefs, your foundational values, your entire worldview, and even what the author refers to as past karma.
Let's pause on that term for a second. Karma can mean a lot of different things depending on the tradition. Are we talking about something mystical here?
In the context of understanding human behavior and decision-making here, it's more helpful to view karma as accumulated mental baggage.
Mental baggage.
Yeah, the deep-seated habits, biases, and generational worldviews built up over a lifetime that inherently cloud your judgment. Breaking through that accumulation is incredibly difficult.
But there is a way through.
There's an actionable solution offered in the text. The baseline advice is to read more, travel more, observe your surroundings deeply, and engage in rigorous thought.
But there's a golden rule, right?
The absolute key to piercing through the confusion is stretching the time frame of your thinking.
Stretching the time frame. This really feels like the crux of the entire philosophy.
It is.
The essays provide this sort of mathematical formula for clarity based on time horizons. Thinking about the outcomes of your actions 1 year away yields vastly different results than thinking 10 years away, 100 years away, or 10,000 years away.
It shifts your entire paradigm. The core principle is that the shorter your thinking time frame, the more you lose sight of the big picture.
It's cognitive tunnel vision.
Exactly. When you are hyper-focused on the immediate future, you attend to one urgent thing while remaining completely blind to the secondary and tertiary consequences. That blindness is what the author defines as confusion.
And conversely, the longer the time frame of your thought, the clearer the mind becomes.
Yes.
It reminds me of looking at a map on your phone. If you are zoomed all the way in on the one specific intersection you are standing at, You might know where the nearest coffee shop is,
But you have no idea which direction the highway is.
or where the river is, or how to actually get across town.
Mhm.
You are hyper-informed about your immediate surroundings, but completely lost in the grand scheme. But the moment you zoom out and look at the entire city grid, your path becomes instantly obvious. The friction disappears.
That is the exact mechanism the author is describing. Zooming out temporally across time functions the same way as zooming out spatially on that map.
It reveals the obstacles further down the road.
Right, allowing you to bypass them entirely instead of crashing into them and acting surprised.
To really test your ability to zoom out, the author presents this brilliant thought experiment. It's called the crossroads scenario. And I want you, listening right now, to picture this vividly.
This is where the philosophy demands a practical choice.
Exactly. You are standing at an intersection. There are 4 exits, and a different figure is standing at each one, offering to lead you down their specific path.
Okay, let's hear the options.
Exit number 1 is the president. He says, "Follow me, and I'll give you a high-ranking official position." According to the text, this secures your interests for tomorrow.
Exit 1 is tomorrow. Got it.
Exit number 2 is the billionaire. He says, "Follow me, and I'll make you incredibly wealthy." This path secures your interests for the next 10 years.
Okay.
Exit number 3 is the pastor. He says, "Follow me, and I'll take you to heaven." This secures your interests for the afterlife.
The ultimate long game for some.
And finally, exit number 4 is the philosopher. He says, "Follow me, and I'll simply teach you right from wrong." Choosing this path secures a clear, understandable, and lucid life in the present moment.
So the question you have to ask yourself is, which path do you actually choose?
If I am being completely honest, and I think this is the trap most of us fall into, the friction of this choice is brutal. Because my instinct is to look for a loophole.
You want all of them.
Yes, I want to say, can't I negotiate this? Can't I follow the president, get the powerful job, use those connections to get rich with the billionaire, still guarantee my spot in heaven with the pastor, and somehow maintain a clear mind with the philosopher?
We are so conditioned to want to optimize everything.
We really are.
But the author dismantles that desire with a fantastic metaphor. A tiger's back won't grow wings.
A tiger's back won't grow wings.
It means you simply cannot possess every evolutionary advantage. A tiger is an apex predator on the ground. It doesn't get to rule the sky as well.
That makes sense.
Trying to claim every benefit across every conflicting time horizon is not optimization. It is a sign of profound mental confusion.
Because they contradict each other.
Inherently. Pursuing the billionaire's path requires compromising the philosopher's path. Accumulating immense wealth over a decade often demands ethical compromises, or a hyper-focus on material gain that directly conflicts with the pursuit of pure, unattached moral clarity.
It creates massive cognitive dissonance. You can't be both.
Precisely. The author goes as far as to say that believing you can have it all makes you a muddlehead. It is akin to suffering from a split personality or living in an illusion.
You must choose.
You cannot be driven by the ego of tomorrow's power and simultaneously be driven by the egoless clarity of the present moment. You have to decide which time horizon governs your life.
And realizing that you can't have it all is really only half the battle. The real danger lies in what happens when we consistently default to the shortest path.
Which brings us to how the source material defines the battle between short-sightedness and foresight in the real world.
The definition of short-sightedness provided in the text is ruthless. It is characterized as the act of chasing immediate interests while remaining willfully blind to future consequences.
It's the behavior of someone drifting with the wind.
A short-sighted person follows whoever offers the most money in the immediate moment, whoever provides the most intoxicating entertainment, or whoever can grant them the highest social status today.
There is an everyday example in the essays that perfectly illustrates this.
The college major one.
Yes. Think about parents who force their children to choose a college major solely based on which industry has the highest starting salary on the day they graduate.
They aren't looking at the child's natural aptitude at all.
No. They aren't considering how artificial intelligence might decimate that industry in 20 years. They certainly aren't asking if the child will be emotionally fulfilled.
They are entirely focused on day one of the rest of the child's life.
It is the optimization of the immediate at the expense of the enduring. And while that example is common, the text lists much darker, more systemic consequences of this mindset.
Like the environmental impact.
Exactly. It points to industries that willingly pollute rivers to maximize quarterly profits, securing quick cash while destroying the resource that sustains them long term.
For individuals who abandon their deeply held faith or morals simply to secure temporary physical safety.
The author also mentions betraying your closest friends or family just to secure a promotion at work, or praising the devil just to avoid risk.
Or acting like a weather vane, having no internal compass and simply changing your stated principles based on whichever political or social wind happens to be blowing the hardest that day.
The warning regarding these behaviors is absolute. Short-sighted actions might secure a temporary benefit, you get the promotion or the cash, but because they ignore the larger web of consequences, they inevitably end in tragedy and disaster once circumstances change.
And circumstances always change.
Always.
So if that is the tragic trap of short-sightedness, what does actual foresight look like? Because it can't just be about making good guesses.
It isn't about guessing at all. Foresight is defined in the essays as the ability to know the long-term outcome of a present phenomenon,
It's pattern recognition.
taken to its absolute highest level. The further out you can accurately project the result of a current action, the more foresight you possess.
The imagery the author uses to describe this is striking. Having foresight means you can observe a child's behavior, how they share, how they speak, how they handle frustration, and know with certainty that they will grow up to be a pillar of society in 20 years.
You are seeing the harvest while looking at the seed. Another great example from the text is seeing a teenager doing menial, difficult labor, shoveling manure.
But they were reading a book during their breaks?
Exactly. A short-sighted person just sees a farmhand covered in dirt. A person with foresight sees the discipline, the hunger for knowledge, and the humility. They know the teenager possesses the raw materials to become a great leader.
It all comes back to reading that wordless book, or going back to our corrupt official. It means watching someone accept a bribe and knowing, not suspecting, but knowing as a fundamental law of cause and effect that they have just built their own prison cell.
Even if the door doesn't lock for another decade.
Yes. And the author brings all of this together by constructing a fascinating evolutionary ladder for humanity, categorized entirely by these timescales.
It's a way to measure the maturity of a mind.
Let's walk through that ladder because it really puts things into perspective. What's the baseline?
The baseline is this. If your thinking is consistently limited to the next 3 to 4 years, the author classifies you as fundamentally short-sighted.
Which, if we are honest, is where a massive portion of modern society operates. We are trying to survive the next election cycle, the next corporate earnings report, or our next annual performance review.
Yes, our systems completely encourage it. But if you can stretch your thinking to 10 or more years ahead, the text elevates you to a person of foresight. You are no longer reacting, you are planning for the long game.
But then the framework takes a massive philosophical leap. The author states that if you were thinking 100 years ahead, meaning you were planning for outcomes and planting metaphorical trees that will only provide shade long after you are dead, you are considered extraordinary or transcendent.
You have essentially moved beyond the selfish limitations of ordinary humanity.
It's a shift from ego-driven thinking to legacy-driven thinking.
And there is one final rung on this ladder. If your time horizon stretches to thousands or even millions of years ahead, the author says you have entered the realm of gods, Buddhas, and immortals.
I want to unpack that because it's a huge statement. What does it actually mean, practically or metaphorically, to think a million years ahead? We can't even predict the stock market next week.
It isn't about predicting technological advancements or specific events. Operating on a timeline of millions of years is a metaphor for complete selflessness and alignment with universal truth.
Alignment with universal truth.
Yes. When your time horizon is that vast, your ego completely dissolves. You are no longer making decisions based on your lifespan, your comfort, or your personal legacy. You are making decisions based on the fundamental, eternal laws of nature and existence.
It is the ultimate state of clear thinking.
Because there is absolutely no personal bias left to confuse your judgment. You are operating on a cosmic scale.
That is a staggering perspective shift. It definitely makes the urgency of an unread email feel pretty insignificant.
It certainly is.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, navigating your life today? Let's distill the core takeaways from this deep dive into Shui Feng's essays. The overarching lesson is that a smooth life isn't a lottery ticket. It is the direct result of clear thinking.
And clear thinking isn't about having a genius-level IQ. It is a mechanical process of extending your time horizon.
Time is the lens through which clarity is achieved.
It makes you want to audit your own space right now, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If you look around your office or your bedroom right now and see chaos, this framework suggests you aren't just looking at clutter, you are looking at a symptom. We challenge you to honestly evaluate your long-term goals. Where does your timeline end?
Are you chasing the billionaire's 10-year plan? Or are you seeking the philosopher's clarity?
Are you reacting to tomorrow, or are you building for a century from now?
Those are the vital questions. And I want to leave you with a final provocative thought that builds on the implications of this source material.
Let's hear it.
If extending our time horizons to hundreds or thousands of years is the ultimate key to internal clarity and a smooth life, we have to critically examine the environment we are currently living in. What is the modern, hyper-connected world actually doing to our brains?
That is the elephant in the room.
We live in an era where our technology is explicitly designed to train us for immediate gratification. Algorithms feed us dopamine hits in seconds. We expect social validation in minutes.
We demand our physical goods be delivered to our doorsteps by tomorrow morning.
Exactly. So if short-sightedness leads to a confused mind and a chaotic life, we have to ask ourselves, are we being systematically engineered by our own technology to be permanently short-sighted?
Wow.
And if so, how do we artificially construct and defend a 100-year perspective in a digital landscape that demands a 10-second reaction?
That is an incredibly heavy, necessary question to mull over the next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling through a feed. How much of your clarity are you trading for convenience? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your minds clear, keep your horizons distant, and we'll catch you next time.